Okay, we want to grab our seats. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. A couple quick announcements. Next week's speaker is Chris D. coming in from New York City. Not to miss speaker event. Don't forget the meeting before this meeting. We start here. We're here very, very early. Usually Howard's here. We got the best coffee maker on the East Coast. He's back there talking, Howard. Hey, Howard, come on up there. Give us a wave, Howard. There you go, son. Plenty of hot dogs and donuts, and we got to give a shout out to Jason S. in New Jersey, who's been putting together our YouTube page. He's doing a great job. I think we got, since we started, that 62,000 views. It's pretty cool how carrying this message to other alcoholics is really what we do here. You know. Anyway, our sister group is a big book study. It meets up here on Thursdays, right at Salem UCC Church. 7:30 p.m. We get there early. 6:15, 6:30. Carolyn's always there. I'm always there, a bunch of other people. We like to go through that book line by line and try to have an experience with it, prepare the program. We're working with the one in print to get those much coveted rewards of sobriety, of recovery, more so than sobriety. Anyway, what else have I got to announce? YouTube page, and I guess you're all familiar with our Facebook page, is the Conscious Contact Speaker Group Facebook page, and in that we try to post any kind of events, and if you have anything going on in AA, any workshops or anniversary meetings, I love anniversary meetings and all that stuff. I always say free food and a half decent speaker, I'm in, you know, so post that stuff, let me know, because food's expensive at home. Anyway, we got the best chairperson in the world coming up here, I think, tonight. Her name is Carol. Let's welcome her.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kara, and I'm an alcoholic. Hello. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m., Doylestown, PA. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. The business meetings for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first names only?
I'm Michael, I'm an alcoholic and addict.
Hi, welcome.
Gracie, first time at this meeting.
Oh, welcome, Gracie.
Jace, just moved here from Florida.
Oh, welcome, another Southerner. Woohoo!
Joe,
Welcome.
This is my first time here. I'm Kara. I'm an alcoholic.
Another Kara. Woohoo!
Samantha, alcoholic. It's my first time at this meeting.
Welcome. We're so glad everyone's here. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Lindsay.
So I'm part of Bucks County Young People in AA, and we're actually hosting PensiPod this year in Bucks County. It's coming to Bucks. And we're having elections on August 21st, Saturday. I have flyers for everything in the car. We're also having ice cream social on Sunday, August 6th, and we're doing a camping trip. So I have all these flyers. If anyone's interested in getting involved, it's going to be a big conference that we're putting on. It's never been in Bucks County before. So
Great, Lindsay. If you want to grab those flyers and put them on the back table, that would be awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Any more announcements? We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who cannot afford can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations, and it's in the back. I would like to ask Carolyn to come up and read the preamble. Let's all give Carolyn a warm welcome.
Hi, my name is Carolyn, and I am an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And who's reading these steps? Jess. Jess is going to read the 12 steps.
Hello, my name is Jess, and I am an alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
The seventh tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. The group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big book, CDs, events, and workshops. And I'd like to mention that with our donations, we have given out over 100 free big books. Woohoo! There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, the best part of the meeting. The Conscious Contact Group, a good friend of ours, we would like to introduce Ruth from Port Fishington.
Hi, my name is Ruth Dubb, and I am an alcoholic. And I'm from just outside of Philadelphia. My home group is Port Fishington, which is in the Fishtown area, Fishtown, Kensington, and Port Richmond area of Philadelphia. And it's a combination of all three of those neighborhoods, Port Fishington. And I'd like to say that because I've been back in Philadelphia, that area, since 2010. I moved away, a lot of geographics, and then I came back to Philadelphia, and I knew and had heard enough cautionary tales about people who had moved away from where they got sober, and they decided that they weren't doing AA right where they were, and they stopped going to meetings, they stopped, doing a program, and then they got drunk. And I said, well, I'm not going to be one of those people. And I but I didn't like the meetings in my neighborhood, in the suburbs, and they weren't passing on a message that I had recognized as the one that got me sober. And, but then I had remembered I had been to an event they called Acts of Recovery. It's a mini conference, and there was a woman that spoke there, and she said she was from the Fishington group. She had a good message, and I remember, oh, Fishington, it's a very hard name to forget. And I said, I'm going to go to that meeting, and I went there, and they had a message that I remember hearing when I first got sober, and I said, this is home. So it's like I'm all over the place. I live in the suburbs, but I go to meetings in Philadelphia, and you just never know where you're going to find the meetings. And it's so exciting being here because this reminds me of where I first got sober, with the old school people dressing up, people just happy and joyous and free, which, and they do have that in Port Fishington, but they really had it at my old meeting in Alexandria, Virginia, Hope is Here. Now, I don't, oh, hey, I know you. Oh my God. Hi. Yeah, that's where I got sober, and I also have to say that I got sober July 3rd, 2001, so not too long ago I just hit 21 years, and I am as surprised. Don't applaud me, applaud God, because that is not me. That was definitely not me. That is all God. And I say this as somebody who used to be an atheist when I first came in. That's how I was raised. To talk to anybody in my family, they don't believe in a higher power that is personal and unique to us, that can solve your problems. And so that's kind of the mindset, and there is nothing wrong with that, but I needed something else. And so when I came into AA, that was that's what I had. But I was so beaten down and so broken that I was willing, as somebody used to say, I was willing to turn my will and my life over to Ronald McDonald if I had to. And I didn't write that. That was somebody who's very well known in certain parts of AA, but see somebody I know, it's like freaking me out. But I try to avoid doing too much of a chronological, because now at this point I've been sober longer than I've been drunk. I pretty much drank constantly for 16 years, and now I've been sober for 21 years, so my story now, my sober story, is a lot longer than my drunkalogue. But I could tell you, I remember when I first came into Hope is Here, and this is why I just want to say this, that how happy everybody was. I was not feeling particularly happy that day, but I knew that that was the day I surrendered. It was not my first time in an AA meeting, but something had happened to me, and I guess I have to tell this story because it really, it's such a big part of how I got sober. I was married, and I will just say, if you'd ever seen the movie Days of Wine and Roses with Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick, that was my marriage. That pretty much, you see that movie, that's like, yep, that's Ruth and Skip right there, except we didn't have a kid. But there was definitely this lack of control, the total despondency, and we just didn't make it. But we still were friendly with each other. He actually did manage to get clean for a while, and I still was. And part of why we got divorced is I wasn't ready to get clean and sober. Like, I wasn't ready to sober up, because he had a problem other than alcohol. That was his primary thing. I am primarily an alcoholic. I've done other things, but the one thing I could not stop with alcohol. And he had gotten sober, and I guess there was pressure on me to get sober, and I said, why should I get sober? I'm the one that was making sure that the lights stayed on, that the rent got paid. Like, I'm not the one that's breaking the bank with my addiction, so why should I have to clean up? And after we split up, I kind of went on a tear, and I said, oh, I really am an alcoholic. But In any case, the night before I got sober, I had made an attempt and it didn't take, and I went back to a few more months of research, and July 2nd, 2001, I had been to the bar like I usually was. My last drink was a the liquor drink. I can't even remember what it was. Sambuca, thank you, with 3 coffee beans in it. And if I had remembered, if that was going to be my last drink, I probably would have had something else. It wasn't my usual thing, but anyway, I came home, and I also have to say, like, up to this point, I wanted to die all the time, and I could not stop thinking about how much I wanted to die. And you looked at my life, I guess it didn't look too bad, but I always had a sense of impending doom. Like, I just felt scared all the time. I'd wake up every morning terrified. And I think part of it was just knowing that my life was going nowhere. I mean, I had a place to live. My family didn't hate me. I guess my health was okay, but I was miserable. And I really think a big part of that was I was trying to control my drinking. I think if I hadn't, maybe I would have been better off, but I was trying desperately not to drink in the morning, and I was not, trying just, not have it in the house. I would just go to the bar and drink, but it was just a miserable, listless existence. And I could not stop thinking about how much I wanted to die. And I had a very specific way that I wanted to do it, but I knew enough that I couldn't do that because my family loved me and it would devastate them. And I wasn't even thinking, what day could I do this? How could I do this with making it look like an accident? And I realized, there's no way to do this. I can't kill myself on New Year's Day because every time the year rolled around, my family would be sad. I can't do it around my birthday because they would be sad. I couldn't do it around Valentine's Day or the holidays. Any time of the year, there's no good time of the year to kill yourself without devastating your family. So I knew, I can't do that. And, but how was I going to do, I didn't expect that to be funny. But I still couldn't, I was miserable. And I had heard that somebody that I knew that I drank with, this was in May of 2001, he had just hung himself in his mother's basement, and that was upsetting. And we all knew him, and everybody in the bar was drinking to mourn him. But then when I came home, the night of July 2nd, it was Monday night, Tuesday morning, it was actually Tuesday morning, July 3rd, I'd gotten a message from my ex-husband that his brother-in-law had just blown his brains out in front of them. And he was a known alcoholic, and I'm not saying like poor me, I didn't know the guy, I wasn't that close to the guy, but I knew him, and this was the second suicide in 2 months. And when I got that message, something happened, and I just was stunned. And this was before everybody had a cell phone, and this was on voicemail, and I listened to that message several times after that. And I happened to have an appointment with my old psychiatrist the next day, and I was going to getting on the metro in Alexandria, King Street. It was noon on July 3rd. It was a very bright sunny day, and I was just about to go up on the escalator to the platform, and it just hit me. I absolutely have to go to a meeting tonight. It was just very strong, and I knew then that I was going to get sober. And I went and I talked to the psychiatrist, and I told him what I was. I said, I'm going back to AA tonight. And he said, okay. Do you want to try this other program? There was another program, it's an abstinence-only program, and we had talked about it because of my resistance to God. This was not a God-based program. And I said, no, I know it has to be AA. And that is when I went to Hope is Here, and I remember everybody was very happy. They had this gauntlet, and they would welcome you like we welcome you here. And I remember the speaker was a young woman, and she was And I thought at the time, oh, she's so slick, she's so polished. But I don't know, like, she was happy. I also remember thinking, and at that meeting they would speak for a half hour and then people would raise their hand to share, but they had to call on you and nobody called on me, and I said, well, why can't I share? I didn't have anything anybody wanted. But something had happened, and I now know, I mean, that was my day of sobriety, and I knew that that was it. And what I believe now is that with these two people who killed themselves, I realized I was going to be number 3 because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I didn't want to be number 3 as much as I thought I did. But I knew, if you don't do something about your drinking, you are going to absolutely die. And like I said, I had attempted to get sober before. I'd even gone into spin dry, one of these little hospital stays where, and they have you fill out these worksheets, and they have your first step worksheet, your second step worksheet, and your third step worksheet. And I remember very dutifully filling out that first step worksheet, and they would say, name these examples of times when you could not control your drinking, and I wrote everything that I could think of, and I think everything that I wrote in there was true, but there was a certain ingredient that wasn't there yet until July 3rd, and that was the knowledge that I was going to die if I didn't do something. And there's nothing wrong with doing those worksheets or trying to do do the steps the other way besides the big book, but I know that there was something that I needed to hear. And maybe it was like when Bill Wilson, he came to Dr. Bob, and Dr. Bob was trying his spiritual means, and then Bill Wilson said, yeah, but you know that this is a fatal illness, and that's what it took for Dr. Bob to get this. And so I just know that there were these two people who had killed themselves as a direct result of this disease, and it's because of them that I am standing here. And it's sometimes a chilling thing. But I've told my ex that because of that phone call that you made to me, that's what got me sober. Now, I say that's when I got sober, but I don't think that's when I really got well. And I'm not saying that, I had a terrible program and everything was awful, but I don't think I really got it until a couple of years later. I mean, I know I was hanging at the right places and I was getting better, but I had the sponsor I had, she did the best that she could with me, and I do believe that she saved my life. But I remember about the 4-year mark when I was starting to feel a little disenchanted, a little resentful, and the sponsor at the time, she really couldn't help me anymore because she had her things that she was doing. She had a sick sister, she really couldn't help me anymore. But when I knew then right away I had to find another sponsor, and there was this woman that I knew. She's 10 years younger than I am, but I knew that she was doing this program, and I remember I saw her in the meeting, and I said, that's the one. And I went up to her and I said, will you be my sponsor? And she said, will you do anything it takes to get over alcohol? And I said, yes. And mind you, this is like 4 years into sobriety. And we started on a journey doing it exactly out of the big book. And that is when I understood the happy, shiny faces, like, I get it now. And that was like, I did a proper 4-step, handwritten, and it was, the way that it's laid out in the big book, with the resentment list and the fear list and the sex inventory. And I sat for the hour afterwards, after talking to my my sponsor, and we went through it, and then I understood, like, oh, I get this now. And I have to say, like, that's not even the first time. Like, I had done a fifth step before, and it didn't seem like it was as good, but I know that something had happened even in that one. And, you know, this is just, I have these experiences, and forgive me if I'm not always chronological, but part of what I want to emphasize that this thing really does work, and sometimes it doesn't always come out in order. But after having done my first fifth step, maybe days later, I remember walking with some people. After a meeting, we were going to a coffee house, and the thing that struck me was how quiet my mind was for the first time. And I realized, and this always happens, like I don't realize something until I don't have it anymore, but up until that point, my brain wouldn't shut up. It was saying, if they knew how awful you really were, if they knew just how low down, like what you really are, you better watch what you say, because something's going to come out of your mouth and they are going to back away from you, and they'll know that you are nothing but scum. And those were really the words that were in my head all the time until I did that first fifth step. And walking down that street in Old Town Alexandria, going and just realizing, and these weren't people I was especially close with. I mean, we're just walking and getting some coffee after a meeting. I haven't seen them, you know, for years. But just knowing that I was at ease, that those thoughts were no longer there, and just because I had done a fifth step to the best of my ability, and it was as honest as it could be, and that my sponsor just said, you know, she kind of smiled knowingly and said, well, where were you selfish? It's like, oh, I was selfish here. And it was, it was just, I didn't realize how much good it had done until I start, you know, just these experiences. And so again, when I did my second fifth step, and you know, again, another honest one, but it was handwritten, and I always recommend to sponsees, please write everything down. Don't use a chart, you know, don't use a word processor on your computer. It's really better to handwrite everything. But after I had been sitting for the hour, I got a call from somebody that I knew in the rooms, and she was calling about a specific problem that was something that I exactly suffered from, you know, just in relation to, am I attractive to boys? And, you know, it was, but she was suffering from the exact same problem, and I felt like I could help her. And I just realized, oh my God, it's like I was electrified. And that was just another experience where I said, this thing really, really does work, where you know, the things that you thought were so important and so dire, they just aren't that important. And really all that's left is that you're a child of God. And there's another thing I could talk about, again, out of order, just the realization that there was a God, you know, God of my understanding. Like I said, I came into these rooms not really believing, but knew that I had a problem. That was my step one. And I was willing to eventually believe, and I knew that these rooms worked because I had seen it, and I was ready to do what it took because I knew I was going to die. And 60 days after I got sober, so July 3rd, 2001, but you know, 2 months after that was 9/11, which, as we know, was not a good day. And it was one of the things that I noticed that everybody else who had gotten sober around me, like very few people actually went back out as a result of that. And it was just one of the things when it's not the big stuff that takes us out, it's the ankle biters. But it was also the fact that it was 60 days, and I realized I haven't been drinking for 60 days, and I'm not white knuckling it. I'm not in an institution. You know, it's not like I was walking around the streets. I had my own apartment. I knew where the liquor stores were. I knew where the bars were, and I wasn't drinking. And I knew it wasn't me, I knew it wasn't willpower, and that's how I realized that there absolutely was a God. And so I would say I had a spiritual experience of the educational variety, and it was just I don't believe in pink clouds. I don't, I think, and then even if you look at the literature, a pink cloud is not necessarily a good thing. And it also says in our literature that most of our spiritual experiences are of the educational variety. So that's being at that 60-day mark and just realizing, I haven't had a drink. I've never gone this long without a drink. Never. Even, all the 16 years, like I drank pretty much or did something else every single day with a couple of exceptions. And now here I am. I'm not in any kind of rehab, and I'm walking around. It's 60 days. I'm not white-knuckling it. I'm not in meetings. I'm not hiding out in church basements. So there is definitely a higher power that is working here. I know it, and I still know it. And I know, like, 21 years is great, and I am as amazed as anyone else is that I have that much time. But I really have to say the time I was most amazed that I could stay sober that long was the 60-day mark. I mean, I never thought that that would happen. And, but there's also, being sober, hold on. I used to say that, back when I didn't know as well, that before July 3rd, 2001, everything was bad because I drank. And then after July 3rd, 2001, everything was good because I did not drink. And I used to have this very, very definite dividing line between before sobriety and after sobriety. And I know now that that is not what this thing is about. And I've had to have a whole lot of painful growth going on. And like I said, there was even that 4-year mark when I had done the steps out of the book, made some proper amends, and that's where I really felt like I was growing. But even then, I could say I am not finished yet. I'm incomplete. I'm a work in progress. And I'm still growing and still learning, but I can tell you that it's been a progressive thing, and that I'm better now than I was, say, 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I was better than I was 2 years before that. And I really do hope that 2 years from now, I'll be better than I am now. But it's just been this slow, steady process with, these certain jolts where you have these certain moments like, aha, another growth period. But it's always a learning process. And one of the, I just want to skip forward to when I moved back to this area. So, like I said, I got sober in Alexandria, Virginia, but I grew up in Philadelphia, and I'd done a whole lot of geographics. I'd moved around because, had to get out of town fast in a lot of ways. But when I moved back to this area, came back. This was what I call my anti-geographic. And I moved here in 2010 to be closer to my family. And it was probably the most graceful exit I ever made, where I could actually tell people, yes, I'm leaving, and goodbye, and keeping in touch. And my family had welcomed me back with open arms. And, just being back in this area, it's been awesome to be close to my family. To find new AA here and see people that I knew from back in Virginia. But it's also been not perfect, and this is one of the things that you find with my family. I have one brother that I am not getting along with very well, and he underwent a change that we all kind of looked on in horror at, that he became a different person. And this is where my first sponsor would say, you take your recovery on the road. And so what I have found that with him, that I've had to pray for him a lot. And, this is just, the tricks of AA, the tools that are in my toolkit, where it says you have a resentment against somebody, you pray for them. And darn if it doesn't work. I mean, it really does. I mean, I know, that he is not doing what he should be doing with regard to his daughters. He's not the person that I grew up with, and I just have to accept that he is a sick person. But on the other hand, I've had really blossoming relationships with the rest of my family. One of the things that happened when I moved back to the Philadelphia area was this. I'll talk about the amends that I made to my mother that turned into one of the biggest gifts that I ever had. And I had kind of made a impromptu amends with her when she had asked me about AA and the steps, and she said, well, what about this step 9 where you make amends, and when are you going to make your amends to me? And I said, what did I do to you? And then she said, well, Skip did this and that. And I didn't listen to her the first time, but the second time I listened and I realized what she was mad about was that my husband at the time had said something really awful to her, said some really nasty things, and I did not defend her. And that really stuck in her craw. And I remember sitting there and I listened to her, and I smoked at the time, and I wanted very badly to go outside and have a cigarette, but I sat and I listened. And I said, oh my God, I'm doing a 9-step amends with my mother. I did not think that was, I didn't expect this. But then I explained to her that, at the time, we were strung out. I knew I was doing bad. You didn't do anything wrong. And I think one of the big things that I had to tell her, and I don't think she understood it, was my alcoholism is not your fault. You are not responsible for this. You did not cause my alcoholism. And I didn't realize how much harm I had done to her. But when I moved back to the Philadelphia area, one of the things that happened was my mother said, now we're going to play music together. So I play the violin, she plays the piano. One of her favorite things to do is to get together and play music. She loves doing this. And when I moved back, she said, we're going to get together and play music here. I got your violin fixed up. I said, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And I said, I don't mind doing this. I'll do it for her because, it's a living amend. It's a 9-step amends. But what I didn't realize when I started doing it was how much I liked doing it and how much I enjoyed playing music. And by the way, we still do this every week. We've been doing it since 2010. We get together every week and play music. And what happened as a result of that was that I found out that there was an orchestra, a community orchestra that plays in Lower Merion, which is where I live, and the music director there happened to be good friends with my father and my stepmother, and they are always looking for string players. And I said, hey, I play violin and I'm not rusty anymore because I've been playing with my mother, so I started playing with them. And that has been one of the most wonderful experiences, to be part of an orchestra, to be part of something bigger. And it was not something that I expected to happen. I did not expect, I hadn't picked up my violin in decades. In fact, I had pawned my violin, for money, because when you're living that life, you always need money. But I had another violin, and my mother, and then I actually went and got a better violin. And it's been an amazing experience being part of the orchestra and playing all this music. And also, there's something especially spiritual about it, because you're part of something that's bigger than you. And I'm not the first violinist, I'm not the leader, I'm just part of a bigger group. I play in the second violin section, and it's a very spiritual thing, because you have to follow directions, you have to look at the conductor, you have to read the music, and you're not the star. You're part of a group, and what you're doing is contributing to that group, and nobody could say, oh look, you're the star. It's like, no, you're part of this bigger thing, but you're making this beautiful sound. And that in itself has led to being in other groups. So, I've also been playing in smaller groups with Settlement, the adult ensemble group, and I also go to the Orchestra Society of Philadelphia on Friday nights. So, this has just been a gift that was given to me because I did this 9-step amends with my mother. And I never would have imagined that it'd come to that. And even in moments, I suffer from depression a lot of the time, and I have treatment for that, and and there are definitely times in my life where I don't take any joy or pleasure in anything, but the music is always there for me. I mean, that is always something. Even at my lowest moments, I can still go and play music with other people, and it's like I said, it's a spiritual experience. But being sober this long, there's things that you think are important that aren't so important anymore. Like I used to be a very avid cyclist, and that's something that I used to do a lot, and just something that fell away that I don't feel like I need to do anymore. And that makes me sad, because I used to enjoy it so much, but I don't anymore. And I don't know why that is, but I know, like, when you're sober this long, it's not like things are going to stay the same forever. And I think that's the lesson that I've been learning, that things are not staying the same. They're always changing, and they're not always going to be the way that I want them to be. Just with things, in the world, things with my family, or things with me. I don't always like what comes down the pike, but I do know that I can accept it, and it's going to be okay if I just learn to take it in stride. So, what else can I talk about? So, being in AA in Philadelphia, I can say that I've done a lot of service work in this area. I actually maintain the website for District 60, which is the area where my home group is in. We are kind of a poor district, but we do have a website thanks to me, because that was one of the things that I learned how to do when I went to art school. And again, that's one of those things that, it didn't pan out for me. And you learn to make mistakes, and you learn that, not everything is going to turn out the way that you want. That was something I remember. And again, another lesson, third step, doing things and not worrying about the results. And that is, I think it used to be that you feel like anything you do has to be perfect and it has to turn out a certain way. But that third step, turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand them. And for me, that means that, it may or may not turn out the way that you want it to, but at least you did what you knew you were supposed to do. And I feel like that is a lot of what my life is, where I wake up and sometimes I don't feel like getting out of bed, but I know that I have to. And I have to do the things that I'm supposed to do. And just, the keeping on and just keep on moving. And being a friend to your friends, a worker among workers. And it's, and then, eventually you start to feel better. And you know that even just, you didn't have to drown your sorrows to do something to take away the boredom. Because I think a lot of what people don't understand about alcoholism, and this was something that I realized, is people don't drink, alcoholics. I didn't drink because something really terrible happened, or some horrible tragedy happened. I drank because I was bored a lot of the time. It was, and that's when, when I would stop, when I tried to stop, and then I made the decision to drink again, I always had told myself, well, I'm not really alcoholic because I'm doing just fine, not drinking, everything's going okay. But you know what would make it better? You know what would really add some spice and some variety is a drink. And, that's how my drinking always started, when I did drink, of course. It was I convinced myself somehow that it was a decision that I had made, that this was something I had decided consciously and in control that I wanted to do. And I know now, from reading this literature, doing this work, and working with other alcoholics, that it was never my choice, that that my mind was working against me, and that is why we are absolutely powerless, that I could not stop on my own, but I was convinced at the time that I had made that decision to start up again. And it was just knowing that it's not my choice. It's something that I can convey to other alcoholics who are trying to get this, that when you think that you have made the decision to start up again, that's not you, and you're absolutely powerless. And it's also a reason why when I'm working with women, I will not fire somebody just because they started up again, because they started drinking, because I know you're powerless. This is not about willpower. You couldn't help it. In fact, I'm not amazed that when somebody starts drinking again, I'm amazed that I've been able to not drink this long. I mean, that's really the amazing thing. It seems like, oh yeah, it's normal, another day sober. It's some days are good, some days are bad, but I'm still sober. That's the amazing thing. I mean, that really is. The fact that I've been sober this long, and again, because I know that I'm powerless, I know that I would never been able to stop that before, that this absolutely is God. And it just doesn't seem like this amazing burning bush experience. It's just normal. And I know when I keep that relationship in mind, that I can't go wrong. I have to mention this. So I told you about my ex who had called me and was the catalyst for my sobriety. And we had kept in touch over the years. I remember one of the reasons I thought, well, I want to get sober is because I thought maybe I could get back together with him, because I knew, well, our marriage was doomed because, we were both, we're alcoholics and drug addicts, but now that we're both clean, maybe love can win and we'll get back together and be happy. Well, in the months after I got sober, I would have conversations with him over the phone, and I would feel so drained after those conversations that I couldn't move for an hour. And he was in another fellowship at the time that shall remain nameless, where they do the steps a lot more slowly. And, he just wasn't of that mind, and his energy, he drained me. And I was like, I don't think I want to be with somebody like this. He makes me miserable. And then it didn't matter, because then he married somebody. She got pregnant, and he unfortunately he couldn't. He lost his sobriety, and he struggled with it. He went through that marriage. He went through another marriage, and I would talk to him periodically over the years. And it's weird how, I know, I've been moving on. As I said, new things become more important. The old stuff doesn't become quite so important. And he just seemed to be in the same place that he always was when we split up. But in 2019, I got a call. I didn't answer it right away, but I saw that it was his sister. And then I knew, because, I mean, his sister and I, we get along fine, we don't have any bad blood, but there was no reason that she would be calling me. So when I saw that, I said, oh no. And what it turned out, and I called her back, or she called me, and it turned out that he had died. He was, he kind of just like fell down suddenly. I think he had had a heart attack, and he died as a result of this disease. And it's, I guess I feel a little numb about it, but I guess also sad. Like he couldn't make it. And the thing is, this was a smart guy. He really was a smart man. He was a good guy, but he was troubled. And I got asked to speak for him at his funeral, and went down. He lived in New Orleans. And that's one of those things, like when we were married, we thought, well, we'll move down to New Orleans and it will be party time. And that didn't happen, but I think, God, I can't believe I was going to go down to New Orleans. And, before he died, he would frequently ask me, like, why don't you come down to New Orleans and I'll show you what a good time it would be. And I would try to evade the question. I said, well, I don't think my boyfriend would like that too much, and how was I going to get away? I mean, I have a life up here. And finally I had said to him, I'm afraid to go down to New Orleans with you, because I don't know what you could talk me into. And that was it's a hard thing to admit. Like I could say, I've been sober for decades, I've been doing this for a while, and I feel reasonably secure in my sobriety, but I think it was an important thing to know that if I went down there to be with them, I don't know what he could have done. I mean, and maybe it was just God saying, like, you don't need to be there, that's not for you. But he understood that. He said, oh, okay. He didn't realize it, but I said, I'm afraid, you're going to talk me into doing something. And because, actually have adequate money to do that, I don't know how long we'd be doing it. So I was, it was a kind of a relief to say that. But it was not long after that he died. And I said I was asked to come speak at his funeral, and I was asked to say something. And I did not know how I was going to do this. I asked my sponsor, I said, I'd asked to do this, so what should I say? I don't know what to say. And she said, just talk about what made you fall in love with him. I thought, oh, wow. And because it would have been very easy to go into a whole, like, oh, it was like days of wine and roses, and we had our addictions and we had our problems, and we struggled, and and what I talked about instead was, the kind of guy he was that made me fall in love with him, like the confidence, the brashness, and the boldness, but also the kindness that he had. And the fact that he didn't really like to talk about that too much or make something of it. I mean, it was not something he really wanted it to be known, but he was. And I could cite plenty of examples in which, he would get indignant when he saw an injustice being perpetrated, when he thought somebody being bullied, and he said, we got to do something about this. But this is not something that he showed off. And what was funny to me was, I talked about this thing, I made it about him, only because I did exactly what my sponsor said. And when somebody else talked about him, they made it all about them. And I thought, boy, I am so glad I talked to my sponsor about that. And I really should talk to her. I know I haven't sought guidance from her in a while, and I do admit that I have not been good about calling her. But I just want to wrap this up and say that I really am grateful for the opportunity to come here and share, and I hope that you did get something out of this, that, if I can do it, anybody can. It's not because I was the worst drunk that there ever was. I'm not. I don't have the worst story that there ever was. I mean, I know there are people who have gone much further down the scale, but I know that it was bad enough that even though wasn't homeless and my health wasn't bad, that I was going to be a dead high bottom if I hadn't come in here. And, and it also was somebody who did not believe in God, and somebody who is still not religious. I can tell you that even if you are like me in that way, that you're not religious and you don't subscribe to that, then if you can find any kind of higher power, call it what you want to, but that was for me the most important thing about this, is the whole higher power thing. I mean, I was resistant to it, I did not believe, but I just, I thought of it as a creative writing course. I said, well, if I were to have a God, what would my God be? And I could list off things that said, well, obviously he has to be powerful enough to keep me sober, but there's also going to be certain things that are important to me, certain opinions that I have that my God would also hold. And I realized that I could have the same beliefs. I didn't have to change my values or my belief system to be part of AA. That you absolutely can do that and have a higher power. I mean, it really was like Christmas to say, you mean I can be the same person, politically, morally, and still believe in a higher power and know and just realize, yes, there was a higher power this whole time, because I know there were plenty of times when I could have died, with the way I was living. Either, putting myself in danger or combining certain substances that should not be combined, and yet here I still am. And I, knew then that there had to be something there that was guiding me, and that is why I'm here talking to you. So thank you for letting me share.
My name's Nick, I'm an alcoholic. Let's have another round of applause for our speakers. It's customary for us to form a line and thank our speaker. They come here at their own time and expense, so we'll do that when we get a chance. We can do some help cleaning up. All the chairs on the floor can go on the racks. The chairs on the tables can stay. Let's thank the coffee maker one more time. Food and fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock, but if you'd like to make this your home group, we're usually here by 7 o'clock. You can always come and see what it's all about. You can always use help setting up and getting ready. So if you'd like to join us, we will close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.